Welcome to the BJCP Tasting Exam preparation course from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club in Orlando, Florida. This is lesson 2 of section 1, the tasting exam, and this is exam judging versus competition judging. So to start off, we have our disclaimer. This episode in this series is not affiliated with, nor endorsed or checked by the BJCP, the AHA, or any other organization discussed in any episode of this series. All right, lesson 2, exam judging versus competition judging. This is important to cover because if you've been judging but haven't sat for your tasting exam yet, there's some distinct differences that you may not be aware of. And I want to make sure everybody knows what to expect when you go into the tasting exam so you're not thrown off, you're not taken by surprise. Your mindset is ready to sit and take the exam, and that's it. I don't want any surprises to come up that I can help prepare you for. So that's what this is about. And what we're going to cover in this lesson is procedural differences, score sheet differences, and evaluation differences. So let's start with procedural differences. In a competition judging setting, you start off knowing what beer style you're going to be judging. You may even have the option of selecting which one. You might be given a option of what's available, and you can even pick and choose which beer style you want to judge. Now, in a exam judging, you have no idea what beer styles you're judging. The best you know for sure is that it's going to be beers from categories 1 through 26. And along with that, you'll be judging 6 different styles. This differs from competition judging. In competition judging, you'll be judging a flight all within a category. Sometimes they're even broken down to subcategory depending on how many entries they have. You might be judging all American lagers. You might be judging all American IPAs. In exam judging, it's going to be 6 different styles, and you don't know what. So that's to start off with the biggest difference. And moving into in competition judging, you technically have as much time as you need or want to judge a flight. And I say it technically because you're not going to want to get a 4-beer flight and take 5 hours, but you're not really pressed for time. The competition coordinator may ask you to be done or start wrapping things up. But as opposed to the exam, you have 90-minute time limit, period. No more, no less. That's all you got. And that breaks down to 15 minutes per beer, and you're brought out a beer every 15 minutes. You're not given all 6 and able to go at your own pace, depending on how well you know the style. You're going to have, when it comes out 6 beer, only 15 minutes. You can drag your feet on the others and kind of make up time on some other ones, and we'll discuss that in the time management course. But keep the number in mind, 15 minutes per beer and 90 minutes altogether. That's all you have. Along with that, in competition judging, you judge with at least one other judge. In many cases, if you have enough people, it could be more. When I run a competition, if I have new people that are just learning to judge, I will put them in with some other certified judges so that they get that experience. I kind of make sure everybody that shows up to do something gets their chance to judge, gets their experience, and gets their point. So at least, but in almost every case, if not, in fact, it should be every case, there's a BJCP sanctioned competition, you will be judging with at least one other judge. In the exam, you're going to be judging on your own. And I say judging on your own rather than alone because you're not going to be alone in the room. In the room, there's going to be the other examinees, the proctors, the administrators, and their assistants. But what I'm trying to say is there'll be no discussion, no comparing scores. What you're writing down, you're going to be the only person that knows what that is, and you're not going to be able to run those numbers by someone else to see if you're in the right realm with anybody else. Everything you're writing is you are the only person that's going to know what's on that sheet. Another difference we mentioned before, and we're going to mention again, recently in competition judging, you may have used a computer to judge or done e-judging. In exam judging, you're using handwritten score sheets. And if you're not used to writing for 90 minutes straight, which you're almost basically going to do, very few breaks in between, just enough time to rub those cramps out of your hand, and you are going to get cramps in your hand, especially in this day and age, the way we are not conditioned to write this much. It is something you need to prepare for. I can't emphasize that enough. I'd say that's something that doesn't get discussed enough because your handwriting, apart from legibility, doesn't really factor in your score. But it's a physical thing that you experience that if you are not ready for, it gets painful. Hand cramps, especially under the duress of taking an exam and making sure you're writing legibly and getting it done in 90 minutes, you tend to put a little more pressure into what you're doing on physical pressure, in your hand while writing. And if you're not prepared for it, let me just say the best thing to do is prepare for it. That's a more positive way to look at this. And with that, the beer score sheet that you're going to be filling out is different than what you may have used in competition. We're actually going to look at that in this lesson. It's a score sheet designed and printed specifically for the tasting exam. And then the big one. In competition judging, you have access to a copy of the BJCP Beer Style Guidelines and virtually any other informational resource. In exam judging, you have no guidelines and no other information to refer to while judging. In fact, no devices are allowed during the exam. And having helped with exams, I can tell you are being watched. You're actually being looked at to make sure you're not slipping something out of your phone or have some kind of screenshot on your watch or so, and you're being watched. You're being monitored. Watched sounds a little creepy, but you are being monitored to ensure that you're not bringing in any devices or information that you're not supposed to have. So the guidelines, we're going to talk a lot about how to know the main characteristics of beer in future lessons, but no guidelines. So we're going to take a lot of time to learn about our beer styles. The score sheet difference. I had just mentioned that a couple slides ago. Here is what this is what a printed beer score sheet looks like. The e-judging system looks different, but the breakdown is still the same. Now, the exam score sheet looks like this. A lot of it's the same, but a significant portion of it is different. We'll go through this a bit more, especially when we start talking about completeness. We're really going to look at the exam score sheet in the completeness lesson and section, I should say. It's going to be a whole section, in a lot more detail, but let's run through it now. First off, the top there's some important things in here. Now, chances are that left-hand side where it says participant ID, exam city, and exam date will be pre-filled out for you. It may not, but you'll be told, if it's not, you'll be told what to write in, and you can fill that in before the 90 minutes starts. That's not going to be part of the 90-minute process. The right-hand side, that box, it's up to you to know what score sheet goes with which beer, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. So make sure when you're judging it, you circle that. If you leave that blank, that's a problem. So that's the first thing you need to think of in completeness. Same with the category number and subcategory. You're going to be told that when you're served the beer. Someone's going to say something like a 7B alt beer. And you write in, sorry, I'm so used to doing digital scoring. You write in category 7 and you write in subcategory B, and then you write out alt beer. Again, completeness. There's really no reason not to have a complete score sheet if you just fill in all the blanks, is what it comes down to. But again, more on that later. This section is exactly the same. It is literally exactly the same. Every word, every line, and everything on here is the same. And this is what we're really going to concentrate on when we concentrate on completeness, because there's a lot of things on here that are going to help you have a complete score sheet. May not be evident now, but when it's pointed out, you can't miss it. So we're going to come back to this in a later section. This is quite different. It's the same list of descriptors that are on a regular score sheet, competition score sheet, and on a digital score sheet. But on the digital score sheet and the regular score sheet, it will explain what those are, what the characteristics are. This obviously does not. So you have to make sure if you're marking these off, it's what you're trying to express. Like if you're, once you know these are not super close, but let's say acetaldehyde, green apple. That's kind of the initial flavor component it gives off, and there's some other information you can go with that. And grassy, 2 green items. You're in an exam, maybe you're a little nervous, you want to make sure you're doing this right, and the fact that 2 things are green, jump in there, take a second, look at what you're writing, make sure you're putting the correct one on there. And we'll talk about more of that when we talk about completeness. In fact, that's just going to be our running motto, I guess, in this lesson. And then the bottom's exactly the same as well, the guide. So if you're scoring a beer and you think it's problematic, or let's say it's fair. Problematic is huge. It's fair, and your score is leaning towards good or very good, you at least have this gauge on the left-hand side to let you know, okay, you're probably scoring too high for what you think of on this beer. And then that matrix box on the right, fill it out. Miss absolutely nothing. Fill this out. Completeness, completeness, completeness. That is the name of the game in the tasting exam. And here's the score sheets again to look at them side by side to see what the differences are. but we will be revisiting this a lot more in the future. There are some differences in the way you want to write out your score sheet as opposed to what you fill out in a competition. And that starts with that you want this to be an evaluation and a demonstration of your beer knowledge. Now, you may already do that. For myself, not so much on the second half. I will put in how to improve or avoid problems, but I don't get very verbose on it. You kind of want to you don't want to overdo it, but you want to put a little more into your beer knowledge than you might normally do in a competition setting. You want to know how you want to express how well you know the beer style. You want to really express your observations in this. Like on a competition sheet, you may say moderate citrus aromas. You want to expand that in the exam to something like to exactly what you're experiencing. Let's say it's a moderate level of mandarin orange zest mixed in with a light hint of yellow grapefruit juice. I'm making something off the top of my head, but you see what the difference is between the two. And we'll talk more about that in a future lesson. You want to express how well you know the brewing process, both in the actual process of brewing and recipe design. Let's say you're getting kind of a grassy vegetal. You want to express how well you know the brewing process, both in the process of brewing and recipe design. Let's say you're picking up some diacetyl and you can mention, be sure to institute a diacetyl rest in your fermentation process, or better, and add the appropriate amount of yeast for the amount of wort and the measured gravity. For recipe, if the style is way too hoppy, you can mention to reduce the late boil additions of hops. If it's too bitter, you can say the early additions, the bittering hops, or if there's a dry hop character that's inappropriate, say avoid dry hopping. Let them know that your observations are coming from a place of knowledge. Now, you don't know how the person brewed it, but you have an idea of what might have happened. And then finally, your exam score sheets are your resume, your interview, and your audition for becoming a certified judge all in one. Now, that, of course, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's hyperbole inspired by reality. This is all the grader is going to see. They won't be judging with you. They won't be asking any follow-up questions. These exam sheets is all they're going to have to grade in this process. So it goes without saying that you'll want to do your best in this exam. And I think generally, if you do your best, you're going to put yourself in a position to get a good score. Obviously, I can't guarantee that that's it, but for many, it's been a proven way to take on this exam. Just do your best. So now that we know what we're getting into, let's start looking at what we can do to help do our best in the next section, because that wraps up lesson 2, and that also wraps up section 1 of this course. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next section.